Welcome to What's Your Sign? I'm Julia Loken.
I'm Stevie Goldstein.
And I'm the little bookworm of this podcast.
Oh, a bookworm sounds
Weep,
so
weep,
cute.
weep, weep.
Reading
I
anything
don't know what
good?
sound worms make, but
I feel like it's
not
like a little
right now.
squeak
Yeah.
when they're inching.
I have been reading a lot of books. I didn't really like the last two, so I don't want to recommend them, but I just feel like we get so many questions from people about feeling stressed and how to do, certain things. And I just feel like reading is such a nice break for me. It's been really healing for me lately. It's been something that I'm able, I got sick over Memorial Day weekend, and it's like having a book when you're sick that you're interested in that you can like speed read through and just spend the whole day on is like, that's such a gift, you know?
Page
Mhm.
turner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's almost as good as a TV show.
It is and it isn't. I mean, I feel like I was in that sick where it was like, I know I like can't go do anything, but I'm not like that sick.
Well,
Mhm.
there's
Like I feel like with TV, it's like sometimes you just need the TV because you have to rest. But when you're reading, it's like you feel a little bit more like, I don't know, brain exercise or something.
like
Mhm.
you're
So
using that rest
if you're like
time.
more bored, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I've been making myself read more because I feel like I've been very sick, but I'm not as sick anymore. But on those days where it's been hard to kind of like get a schedule again or decide if I
Mhm.
like want to do stuff, but I also am like I got to do something, and it's reading.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that feels, you like feel like you're doing something healthy or whatever. It's like the healthy
Yeah.
choice. Get, like you said, like I'm still not pushing myself to go do something else, but I'm like, okay, you can read a book, take advantage of this time that's in a still like restful, quiet
Mhm.
way, but not just like finding some show that I was like about to watch another like Guy Fieri vehicle, which is fine, but I was like, you don't really want to watch an entire season of like Guy's Ranch Cook Off. Like you're not going to feel
Well,
good
You
after. I
don't.
mean, maybe egg on
damn.
my face, but there's still time to watch Guy's Ranch
Look,
Cook Off.
hear us out, guy. Ranch cook off the book.
Okay, yeah, write
Bring
it.
it, bring it home. Well, like,
Confessions of a Ranch Cook Off. Yes.
well, like books are just like the carrot sticks of media. Like if you see someone reading, you're like, oh, that's good.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
we know it's not a screen unless you're
Yeah.
a tablet padlet person.
And I do
I
love a cosplay of like I'm just like
I'm so
I'm just
smart.
a woman in bed reading. Like
Uh,
someone's gonna come upon me and find me
You
reading, and
gotta
I'm gonna
have
look
a
so good.
cozy
mhm.
long sleeve. I'm also
Yes.
partial these days to natural light when I'm reading,
Yes.
which I don't give myself any other time of the day. I mean, like I do, but not TV or rest, like I
Mhm.
leave all the curtains open. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, bed is instant snooze. I need a daytime park, light, bright. It's like a marking of time. I just started reading from a recommendation from my friend Christine, fellow Taurus, fellow April 21st, um, and friend of the pod. But Rick Rubin's book, oh
Mhm.
my God, what is it?
The Tao of Creativity.
Something of like living a creative life or something. Rick Rubin, I'm sure we've shared like a meme or two of him. I know there was like one going around recently because he's like a famous. Oh, The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. I'm loving it because, first of all, it proves sort of like his philosophy as being a music producer because he's a music producer who doesn't play an instrument. He's just a vibe guy. He's like, yo, Jay-Z, put that little voice here. Like he just knows how to curate sound and curate aesthetic things. And it's like reading his book is like, wow, this man, these are 3-page chapters, which I love. Like I feel like a
I
genius.
love,
I feel like a
I
genius.
love,
I'm like breezing. I'm like page 111, angel number. Like we're like, I'm going to kill this book in a day. And two, the font's huge. I mean, and this man is saying gospel. It's like, it's a book you want to stop, take a picture. You're like, shit, I need to put that on my mood board. And he's saying stuff that's not absurd. It's stuff we know, which, hello, don't we feel that a lot of times with astrology or tarot, where it's like, oh, I knew this thing, but I just needed someone I don't know at all to say it to me in a very unbiased way. Also, he's a Pisces sun, Virgo
Mhm.
moon. It's such a Pisces Virgo axis book and just such good advice if you're a creative person, just of, yeah, like what you make shouldn't have such weight to be this perfect thing. And it's the only thing you've ever created. Like it's part of your legacy and story. So just, it's like very like, just kill it. Like get it out. Your job is to finish it. It's not for it to be good. Hopefully it's good. Like hopefully it's good at the end, but you just want to make something. And also, I don't know, there's just like a lot of good stuff, but that's been I'm also in a book. I'm in book time. And acknowledging when to put books away, because I've had some bad books come in my roto, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to. I'm not dumb if I don't want to finish reading this book. Like a TV show, I don't finish every show. You go on to the next thing.
I recently went to watch my friend do a sketch comedy show. Well, it was last night, and it was my friend Blake Wilding, who you should follow if you like comedy stuff. He's a performer at UCB, and he's really just a really funny, kind of quirky weirdo Scorpio. And you know, loves and hates on this podcast have definitely been attributed because we've been roommates and we've like been friends for a long time and whatever. But I was so impressed at watching him create like this half-hour show that was so telling about who he was through sketches, and then also in the end had like a really sweet message about writing this entire thing to like learn how to love his past self and all of this stuff. And it was done in a way that was really humorous and cute and also like very Blake. So that is another thing that I feel like I've been missing, is like watching live long form stuff, because in stand up we get so piecemeal with everything, and it's a lot of showcase shows, and even in comedy, like I don't get to see my friends perform hour long shows very regularly. So that was another really nice, like creative and fun, I don't know, inspo.
This story, we're still in storytelling season with Gemini season and how we're laying out the info. And now we just recently had Venus move into Leo too, and I feel like I've been talking a lot to people of like the one woman show, or like, I don't know, having that sort of spotlight thing of just who are you? And what you're saying is like, oh, you got to really see something with like these vignettes and these pieces coming together of a whole, like, oh, that's so you, which I think is always so cool. And you can walk away from anyone's whatever they've made and be like, oh, I got them. Like that just describes their personality or their style or whatever it is. That's cool. Wait, where's the show?
It's at UCB. I don't know if it'll go again. It was like I don't know.
UCB is back. I've seen the lines. They're back.
It's called Kitty Baby Recharged. It's about his college iPod coming to life. And so there's like a lot of, especially if you're our age group, songs that definitely will remind you of breakups or things you went through in college, and like kind of all around that time period. You did the vernacular that was like popular, that those kind of things that really pop out, rather than, you know, a sketch comedy that's like still valuable, like making statements or whatever. But this just felt more personal and like reflective.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
That reminds me, I just heard of this, and Pablo was shocked that I've never heard of. Have you guys heard of the Millennial soooo? S-O?
Like the...
So...
Yes.
I guess it's just particularly for... It's a very like, so I did a thing, or like that cadence. I just didn't know... This is just my first time hearing that was a clock of like, oh, we use emojis and we go, so I did a
We
thing.
also have the Millennial pause, which I feel like is another placeholder for the so, which is the like, I'm starting a signature of a millennial like internet video is the like pause before they begin speaking instead of the like going right into it.
Whoa.
I think the level of analytics towards our generation is astounding, considering that we don't have healthcare. Like, go ahead. Yes, so and pause, please.
So
I don't have a fucking job. I could care less.
So
I mean, I care.
Yes,
culturally, I care, but you know.
So I'm afraid to take an ambulance ride because
maybe leave us alone.
The human tongue. Oh yeah, no, it's well, the millennials, I don't know. Like, what will the alphas be? We'll find out.
It's one that I think it's interesting, and you just don't think about when you're getting older, and then you like realize that you are out of the. I feel like that's been something that has been, like crystallizing for me, or that I've been noticing more. Where I'm like, oh, I'm not going to say I'm old, because I don't mean that. And I don't feel a way necessarily about getting older. I enjoy it. I'm happy about it. I am like glad to be progressing in life in that way. But I am noticing like, oh, I'm not in this generation anymore, like in the young people. And it's because of things like this. But it is the like, oh, this younger generation doesn't realize that they will one day be this other generation, and that people are going to go like, oh, that's the Gen Z, blah, blah, blah. And you don't think of it because you go like, oh, I'm never going to be like those older people that are out of touch and whatever. And then you don't even know it's a thing that you're doing until someone else goes like, oh, that's the millennial pause. That's the millennial so whatever. And you're like, I was just talking. What are you doing? Like, what?
And also probably just because we're the first generation to document ourselves. Like Gen Xers have like some snapshots of their lives and movies and books and things that are Gen X-y, but then they disappeared and came of age not documented. Then you flash forward and like, well, that's the other thing I read, like millennials don't age. And I'm like, well, we're aware of we're aware of our face. We look at our face all the time.
Get out of town. Gen Xers love to put a South Park sticker on their Instagram story. Like, don't even act like there aren't things that other generations do that are unfortunate and cringe. And
of course.
No one is safe. Like,
yeah. No, but I do think there's like a very real, like, oh yeah, you guys just wait. These until you find out what your generation's thing is that you didn't ask for.
Gen Xers are the referential movie quoters, like that, all that stuff to me, which it trickles down into millennial for sure, but we all have our stuff.
Yeah.
Influenced by our ancestors.
Well, that's interesting thinking. I mean, we gotta talk more. I mean, not right now because we have other things to get to today, but this is really
somebody requested.
I know, that's why I was like, it's making me think of what the aspects are specifically, because I do think like of the pause, of the so, of the thing, because I do think it's like Pluto Scorpio of like, oh well, we're probably about to disclose something like totally awful that just happened to us that we need to talk about.
Guess what I just found out at the depths of the ocean.
Yeah, there's no easy way to transition to this, but I am about to like disclose information that's going to ruin everybody's lives, or at least kill the vibe for a day or two. Something, or like I'm about to put myself out there in a way that's deeply embarrassing, or whatever it is.
Well, I think and we should look at the generationally things in terms of the astro, but I think too, even like the so, or the like, oh my God, you won't believe this teddy bear saved a donkey. And it's like, I believe that now. Like that's everything has happened. Like every like clickbait thing has happened. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing to see. And I think we've talked a little bit about it, maybe with Pluto and Aquarius, of like the stock on influencing is plummeting because there's just too much. That's how it's still part of capitalism. It's still part of the supply and demand. It's like, yeah, we can't have another family that sings like in the other two. Like we hit a limit, or you'll all be selling $4 cameos or whatever, whatever the market value of you is. So anyways, that wasn't any of the questions for today, but it has been, I think you're right, Lisa. Someone asked about the generations of astro. And we've talked a little bit here and there because we have generational planets that make it very fun to talk about that. But we have listener questions to get to.
So
I guess we'll answer talk about So I guess you guys have questions. I will say, I mean, the years on these things when people submit their charts, I'm not uncomfortable with, but we'll carry on.
Hey, people can't help when they're born.
They can't. It's chill. I guess it makes sense, but doesn't make sense to me. But Yeah, it's our June
As someone,
mailbag.
as someone who's going to give birth to someone whose birthday it says 2023. That's
oh my God.
crazy.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, or I'm like, oh God, someone's going to read your chart one day and go 2023. Oh,
Saturn and Pisces. Hey, that's when it all went downhill. And we restarted that Saturn cycle.
Trying to be
born at zero. Well, no, they'll be the Capricorn Pluto.
Yeah, they'll be Pluto and Capricorn. I know.
But we got some questions from our Patreoners. Patreon.com/What's Your Sign Podcast.
Join us for fun bonus material and also the opportunity to ask a question each month. This is how we pull those questions is from our patrons. So if that's something that excites you, check it out.
All
right.
Hit us with question one and all. And for those who want to or are watching on YouTube, we'll have the chart up in just a sec. So you can diagnose along.
Okay. This questioner has asked to remain anonymous. So Anonymous writes, love you girlies, but I've already said all the gooey stuff via podcast reviews, which you read years ago. So straight into the queue. So I find it really hard to authentically be myself around people. I feel like when I'm alone or when I'm visualizing myself, I have a very strong idea of what my identity is. However, when I'm around people, I have I'll mirror who you are and be the yin to your yang type personality. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a pushover, I'm stubborn, I fight for what I think is fair, I enjoy a friendly debate, and I've never been one to fake things to be cordial. But I do for sure feel in a social situation, I'll just be whatever is lacking. If I'm around loud people, I'll be the quiet one. If I'm around timid people, I'll be the loud one. When I'm around my lovely, soft family of compassionate, empathetic women, I always rock up with my personality in full bro, masculine, toughen up kid, life's hard mode. But then leave them thinking, why did I act like that? That's not really me. I'm a lot softer than that. My question is, what would your advice be on how to combat my rising and moon a bit more and lean into my earthy sun? I feel like I have two stubborn twin bulls sat in this Libra scale, and I can't fully figure out who I am or how to present because of how my air element reacts. Thanks for being my official therapists.
Hey, just a reminder, we are not official therapists.
Literally not.
This question also comes from someone who wrote ... so in their question. So I'm just thrilled that we all get to answer that.
Yes. And we didn't get the time, but they did message us that they were Libra rising. So I just put it to an early degree of Libra. So if it's a little different than your chart listening at home, well, that's tough shit.
Yeah, life's hard, kid. Toughen up.
Yeah, I know. Imagine that very like old timey, like, see here, you just gotta toughen up. And it's like, why is she doing this? Why does she keep leaning against the wall and smoking a cigarette like James Dean? But yeah, we have a Taurus sun, Gemini moon, Libra rising for the big three.
I have a theory about your question, and I think it's a Gemini Venus thing. Okay. And I think that because I also share that placement and I find that I do similar things. I find that I mimic people's speech patterns, and often like I'm a person who will like copy your accent. Unfortunately, it's just like I try not to. I know it's not cool. But I like adopt vernacular from people, and I think I do kind of adapt to I fall into certain patterns in certain groups. Venus in Gemini is also my chart ruler as well as it is yours. So it could just be that really like Gemini Venus sticking out. I think Venus is definitely a place about like being amicable, right? So it's kind of that, I don't know if it's necessarily like fitting in that sense. But I do think that it's about making people feel comfortable in those kind of things, especially in a Libra rising sense. I also feel like we have to work with all of the parts of our natal chart. So it can't be just like leaning into the sun to like combat the rising and moon, though I do, sometimes the one thing's more valuable than another and we want to use it more. But using both to your advantage. And I think because you have air, it's that like intellecting your way into the earth. So it's tough because those two things don't always naturally go together. Some of the things that I think are really fun for like accessing earth energy are, going actually literally outside in earth and nature. You can do like grounding meditations. Crystals like literally make you heavy. They literally ground you if you like have them in your pockets. And then using salt is always like a good grounding mechanism. Something I do because I'm behind a bar sometimes is I'll grab like the margarita salt and just like rub it in my hands until I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit like I can feel the feeling in my hands. I can feel the like, and then obviously go wash my hands. But yeah, anything like that makes you actually tactically feel. And I think especially if you want to incorporate the air, it's like go out into nature and like survey plants or do something intellectual in that space, like bird watch or something that feels like, we're keeping track of something, organizing or intellecting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that stands out to me about this question, I'm a Libra rising as well, and I definitely relate to this. But I'm also, you have this mutable moon and this mutable Venus chart ruler, like Lisa said, and I think that those are all like things that we could point to kind of for this thing. But I think that there's also this kind of idea of authentic self versus the self around other people. And I do think that there is something, Libra rising or not, that's like, I don't think you're supposed to be the same around all people. I do think you are meant to adjust a bit, or at least like be aware that other people are there, and to say that that isn't going to influence how we behave, I think is like, that's what assholes do. Like, you know what I mean? To be like, I'm me no matter what at all times. I'm not going to read the room at all or adjust to anybody there. Like, that's not being your authentic self. That's being inconsiderate, I think. And again, maybe this is my Libra rising popping out to say this, but I do think that there are people that will say I'm my authentic self. But I think that that is also like a projection of this idea of like not ever being influenced or changed or anything like that. And I just don't think that that's realistic in social interactions. On like the opposite of that, though, I think there's a difference between noticing when you adjust to a room versus feeling like you are betraying yourself in some way and behaving in a way that isn't like the way that you actually want to. And that to me is more of the, like, to me, Gemini moon impulsivity or wanting to just kind of do the opposite, as opposed to maybe being a little bit more shy than you felt like being because you notice there's enough of an energy in your room. Because I do think that that Libra balance wants the harmony, and it goes like, well, if there's a bunch of loud people in here, the way to like be noticed or whatever, or to bring balance into this, isn't to be also loud, it's to take it down a notch. We have enough of that already. And I think that also, like, there's also like a pressure of like, you don't have to be, not every interaction counts that much or whatever. Does that make sense what I'm saying? The like, if you have a day where you're off, then remember that the next time and just go, okay, next time I'm going to come in and I'm going to know that like what my impulse to do is to be super broy and masculine when I'm around my family, and know that I actually don't have to counterbalance this. I can be the same. I think that Aries Saturn kind of opposing this Libra rising wants to differentiate and stand out and say, I am me, and really like self-define. It's that like Mars ruled Saturn, when it is also okay to like, I don't want to say blend in, but go with what the group is doing. You also aren't always responsible for being the counterbalance.
Yeah. It feels the Libra-ness is like hard to ignore, but I like thinking of the what Julia said too. You're seeing and observing that there's enough of this here. I just don't. If that's not how if everyone's like singing and partying and you want to, but then you quiet yourself, then like I think that's the question, because I don't read this as like this is a bad thing, or like I don't feel like you're writing this as like, and this is a huge problem, because I think like what you're doing is like it's like almost the opposite of like co-regulating, right? It's just like I don't know. I just don't want it to be like a checking yourself out, and having Chiron and the North Node in Libra in your first house does feel like there's something there about being with self and other. And where, where I don't know. I guess like my only like advice in air quotes could be, if you say something that you don't agree with, it's totally fine after be like, actually, I don't know why I said that. I would like to sing, or I would like to go do this, or actually I am feeling quiet. So I think there's like, it's safe to be in that Gemini impulsive off the cuff and then go back. I think the Taurus thing is like, wait, actually that was an impulse. I changed my mind. Like I would like to do something different. It's hard to not also acknowledge that you have Mercury retrograde in your chart, conjunct the sun, not tight, but not far either, like 7 degrees away. And then Taurus Mars as well. So there is, you have a lot of slow and you have a lot of go in your chart. And so if you have Mercury retrograde in your chart, it doesn't mean you don't know how to communicate or be with others, but you are going to process probably a little differently than others. It's maybe, they see red, you see orange. So there might just be some differences there. I think looking at Mercury and how we do process the information of others. But I like this. See, I'm fascinated by this question because I'm such the opposite. I'm like, if people are hyped, I'm hyped. If everyone's like quiet and low, I'm quiet and low. So now I'm just like intrigued how, like, does everyone fit in these two worlds of like being in the, or is there 3 worlds? Is it like being in the energy and going with it, seeing the energy and going against, or like being what you see is what you get, this like unapologetic sort of thing that you talked about, Julia, which I usually find to be like, yeah, if you're like, I don't care how anybody feels, this is how I feel. It's like, well, that's okay. That's one way to do it, I guess. But
I also don't mean to say that people who feel authentic, I'm sure there is a middle ground in there too that I'm not addressing.
Totally.
Too,
But no, but the like, you're going to get the version of me that shows up, which is good. There's good, but then there's also, I think there's power in reading the room and understanding that, some people are going to need different things from you and vice versa. And are your 3rd and 9th houses? Well, I guess I shouldn't look at interceptions because I don't know the rising.
We don't know
the
for
rising
sure.
degree. Yeah. Scratch that. But yeah, I guess back to, I think Lisa's advice on earthing.
We do actually know the location. So regardless of the rising degree, wouldn't the houses be intercepted?
Well, unless
space time,
unless she's like a 29 degree Libra, like I don't know a degree of that would change the.
But it would still
be those houses. It might not still be those signs.
Yeah,
I believe
something too sus.
I think that there also is this, because that Libra North Node, Aries South Node, I think also to me suggests this idea that it feels very either or, that it is like to go with, to consider other people might feel like a betrayal of self in this way that it is actually isn't. It can be more situational. Again, to me, it's more like I think what Stevie said too, where are we like being dishonest about how we actually feel? Are we just saying the opposite to say the opposite? Or are we not participating in something when we really want to? It doesn't sound like that's what it is. I think it's just that internal struggle, I think, of going like, am I asserting myself enough? I think also this Taurus Mars Mercury in the 8th house, which we already discussed that your Mercury is retrograde, but I think that Taurus Mars in the 8th also might feel like your actions go unnoticed, or yourself, that we need to kind of overcompensate a little bit because someone else is, getting credit for the thing that you said. You say something and someone else says it louder, or like you do behind the scenes effort and you want to make sure you're being recognized kind of thing too, or making sure that your own individuality is standing out and you aren't just kind of blending into the crowd. But I do think, again, that I think taking some pressure off, again, where it's like noticing how you're feeling so you can kind of self-regulate. Again, I brought too much of this energy last time. I'm going to be mindful that that's like my instinct, but I'm really going to try to kind of temper that response, but also feeling like it's not every, like, you're not if you're quieter one day you hang out, people aren't going to forget that you are vocal and loud when you're having a good time or something like that. I think that it feels like a lot of pressure too.
I think also we don't always have to analyze the way that we were somewhere. I mean, I know it's important to like reflect on the way you treat people and stuff, but it's okay to like it seems to feel like it's a consistent thing for you where you're like, why did I be that way or whatever. And I do think you have 3 Libra placements, you have 2 Gemini placements. I mean, you recognize duality, and my computer's gonna break. But you recognize the duality in the world, and not everyone does. And so, like, I feel like to some extent, being the loud person when everyone's being quiet is like a recognition of like a sort of causal effectal cycle, and like things that it's reflective of every other part of life, light and dark, night and day, sleep and awake. Like there's so much back and forth and binary in our day-to-day lives that I think like giving people a chance to react to that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just, if it's something that you're focusing on and it seems like you feel like maybe you're hard on yourself about it, or it feels like, you feel like inauthentic or something, it's okay to just, your authentic self can be challenging or creating, dichotomy and balance and things. Like, obviously don't devil's advocate everything that comes up, but hey, it's okay to change the energy a little bit, or, it makes you a part of the thing. It's something, you know what I mean?
Well, there's also, to me, this is also like I'm wanting to connect and make sure people know me, see me. And I think being aware of what is going on, like being the quiet for the loud person to kind of like play off of, is also how you get to like engage with other people. And I think that is also something that you are like here to do, as evidenced by this Libra North Node and Libra rising and this Gemini Venus and moon, of that, like the partner, the mirror, someone to bounce off with, all of that kind of thing too. And so I think that just being aware, I think it's more awareness of how that might make you feel, and being like, this is something that I need to regulate, not in my actual behavior, but that I'm conscious of this. And so it's something that I'm going to think about, and kind of, like Lisa said, I might overanalyze and be thinking about maybe too much in a way that makes me feel self-conscious, but I don't necessarily think that that's how people are reading your behavior, or that's like the effect that you're having on people. And it's not wrong inherently to care about being able to interact. Again, it's like you clearly care about the impact that you have on people, or that wanting to connect. And I think that that's also like, prioritize that feeling instead of whether or not you're being authentic. Because I think, again, that's idea of like, authentic to me means that you're like one thing all the time. And I think that Taurus sun would love for that to be true. And there is part of that. Again, when you say, I visualize myself as this thing, I have such a strong, clear energy. And it's like, yeah, that's still there and present. But also we have all of these other moving parts that are also interacting and stuff too. Nothing happens in a vacuum too. So I think that doesn't mean inauthentic. It means everything else is working too.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if this is just groups also, like how are one-on-one friendships, or how are smaller things. Cause I'm hearing the more like the whole family or this party. And I think, social things can be weird. And I think the thing that I'm thinking of too is like when you're saying like, oh, loud groups, I might get more quiet, but timid groups, I'm like loud one. And I just want to point out, because the only squares where I feel like that's where we can get a lot of like, so what do I do? Information is the square from the nodes to your Jupiter and Capricorn in the 4th. So I do think that release of being the responsible one, or the one that's setting the example, maybe if it's the other way, if you're feeling there's too much, concentration in what, like being loud, then it's like, well, I'm going to be reserved, or, oh, these people are too reserved, I'm now going to be loud. I think you're not responsible for the party, or like how everyone's feeling, or like how it's going to go. So I think once, I don't know, just an acknowledgement of like, there's a lot of earth here, and a lot of like responsibility that might be like tied in, as well as the just general air sign socialness. So just acknowledging that these two worlds exist, definitely coexist in your chart, but also like, it's not your job to be what anyone needs. No one's assigned you this role. And I think the more we know it's not our job, it's easier to release it. If that's something we want to release.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you sound great to be around. And you sound like you can hang. You have like, it sounds like you're surrounded by a lot of people too. So I'm not very surprised. And I think I think Julia mentioned it too. It's like, yeah, there's some people we have to be different around as well. That's more common. So when I see combat Gemini placements, like, no, leave them alone. Like, let them play, let them out to play. And we can be different.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting question. I like this question.
Great question. Thank you so much. And thank you for being our patron.
Thank you. And very relatable. I feel like a lot of people hard relate. Well, let us know if you're one of the, which one are you?
Adapt, let us know if you relate, and let us know.
Reject, or what you see is what you get. I feel like maybe there's other ones too, but those seem to be the three that come to mind. But thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing this chart. So yeah, watch on YouTube, see the charts, and we'll get question 2 going.
Okay. Question 2. I don't know.
I don't think they gave us a name.
They didn't say either way, but I'll just say again, anonymous, because it also feels very like
please.
Anonymous asks, what transits are indicators that you'll move/relocate or get a new job? Is there something in my chart that explains why I'm so preoccupied with the future? And what grounding technique is best for my moon sign? Oh, this is multiple.
I didn't realize there was 2 groundings. Hey, ground is the theme.
Yeah, grounding. Hey,
we're grounded down.
Touch grass.
Yeah, I was like Jupiter, Taurus. Come on. This person was born January 31st, year 2000 in Rochester, New York.
Cool. Let me get their chart up in a second, but good.
And yeah,
good cues. Okay, here we go. Una momento, sharing screen share. Boom. Here we go.
All right. Thank you for your question. In terms of your first question about transits, I would say, textbooks wise, we're looking for transits to the 4th house, 6th house, 10th house. I immediately make it more complicated than it needs to be, because I feel like we need to be more specific about like changing jobs, because I feel like there's a lot of reasons that could cause a move or a job change. So it's not as simple as, when something transits my 4th house, I'm going to move, or when I have a 10th house transit, I'm going to get a new job. Depends on the planet, obviously. But something textbook would be a Uranus transit through either of those, a Mars transit through either of those. Again, my brain goes like, well, do you want it to be you're getting a new job because you chose a new job, or because you got fired from that job, or because your job, no longer exists, or whatever? Again, those are going to be different transits, but I think that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the angles are going to be a value here.
Mm-hmm.
I also think Saturn is not to be ignored in this conversation. As far as aspects go, I would say conjunction squares and trines are going to be the ones. And I think those are going to tell us maybe a little bit more about the why and the how these things happen. Are we getting shuffled out of a location into another? Are we getting, is this something we want to do versus is it something that we have to do? Those kind of things. I think the aspects might tell us a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet that, the reason I say all the angles is because I think with the ascendant, I think a new job can, and especially if you have to move for it, it can cause some sort of identity shift. And so I think that can really affect when it's transiting your ascendant. The reason I say the angle on the other side, the descendant, is because I think the 6th house is routine. The 7th is like contracts. So I think sometimes when we're having to do, signing paperwork for new jobs and all of those kind of things come up, and negotiations. And again, depending on what kind of work you do, possibly, someone that works in film and television, they might have 3 or 4 contracts per job, versus if you're like signing a W-2 to be employed, is a little bit different or something. So again, the type of job, the aspect, and the flavor. I mean, I wouldn't ignore the moon either, even though it moves quickly. I just feel like because it's associated with the 4th, like Cancer, I feel like maybe that might give us clues. Obviously the moon moves really quickly and it's going to transit things more often, but that might give us clues into how we handle it, how we feel about it.
I think 8th house too. Not as common, but if we're talking about, again, depending on moving, is this like
mergers and
yeah, is this someone else's thing, or is this real estate versus, you know, apartment? Is this also, to me, that is like other people's money and things as well too, which also to me goes into potential work kind of territory too, of other things happening outside of ourselves.
I also feel like the 10th house really does, like, people that have, and I know because you have Taurus here right now, I know that you've been having it. So and don't worry, because I have too, but you've probably been dealing with job stuff if you have stuff transiting your 10th house. Like, it's just every time it happens to me, I look and I'm like, it is up there again. Like, every time I look at someone's chart that is like, I'm having work problems or I'm moving jobs or this or that, there's always something going on up there. So I really do feel like that's the main guy.
I'll bring another player into the chat. I think second house transits. I know we talked about eighth with maybe how you're getting money. I mean, look, the whole chart's going to paint a picture of different. These are really big things, moving and getting a new job. Like, these are angular things, like Lisa said, that are starting really new chapters. I mean, second house with like how you support yourself and make money. Like, that's another, when I talk to people and I just like can't do what I've been doing this whole time. It's like, oh, you're having a lot of changes going through how you're showing up and supporting yourself. All of these things are great, but like, I think in a very like bare bones, you know, with home and work, is that 4th and 10th house axis, and looking at the rulers of those 4th and 10th house axes, if they're getting hit with major transits, or like, of course, for you, we all know you've been having Uranus go through your 10th house, looking at this Leo rising chart with Saturn up near the midheaven in Taurus. So I think even though like it might not be as literal as, oh, well, Uranus is going through my 10th house, I need to change my whole, stamp on the world or what I'm doing out here. I mean, it might be like in that work money sense, because sometimes we want to change it. It depends what the purpose is, sort of like what Julia said. Like, is it making more money, or is it an identity thing, or is it all of the above? And I mean, you've been having the eclipses happening in your 4th and 10th house. So I don't know if moving and changing careers is on the mind, or a move that's inspired by, a career change, or like seeing yourself somewhere different. You asked why you're, future minded. I mean, you're Aquarian as fuck.
Yeah.
So, like, it's like, that is, you are the future.
Aquarian, like, and that Sag moon too.
Sag, I know, it's like baby is pondering or everything. And I think too, with the 11th house being ruled by Gemini, brings it back to your Mercury and Aquarius. There is a lot of, what will this all look like? And I mean, not that I don't know if you asked for this as advice, but with Saturn and Taurus, I mean, you're ways out from your Saturn return, but sometimes it's just doing it rather than thinking too much about it, and like putting pen to paper, or just starting to build out. I think I kind of talked about it with the Rubin book earlier. It's like, you just need to start making stuff sometimes. And then like the answers the future might unfold a little bit more if we start the process of going towards the future than just thinking and looking at it.
Yeah, to me, what just stood out when you were saying that is all of the above. Agree with everything said. All of this Aquarius, this Sag moon, also this Jupiter and Aries up at the top here in the 9th house, and that Saturn and Taurus in the 10th, I think is also very future. There's a lot of stuff in here that is future oriented, or longevity oriented, building for the future in a bunch of different ways. I think that this Venus in Capricorn wants that stability of knowing where you're going to be, but also these kind of speedier, quicker. I'm always amazed at like the conception of time with Aries energy, which I think is very, like, I don't want to say not short-sighted, but I think does need to feel like we're always doing something forward moving. Does not like the idea of staying in the same place, like not literally like where you're living, but in an energetics kind of way of kind of growing and progressing. And I think that Jupiter in Aries wants to know what, like, there's got to be more kind of down the pike. But I think that this Capricorn Venus is also where we look for safety and stability and things to be nice and good. I think is maybe wanting a little bit more of a, like, this is an inference that I am making. This is not literally what you said in your in your question, but the idea of like, well, when am I going to move or change a job? Because then I'll orient to those things, as opposed to I'm feeling restless and I want to do it. I need to make a move. I think the second one is better operating instructions for your chart versus waiting to see when this lines up a little bit more, because I think that you can create some more stability based on the decision that you make versus waiting to
letting
make a
someone
decision.
else make the choice. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's always going to feel
I-
stuck.
I also think that because you asked about grounding and for your moon sign, and I think we actually talked about this in the moon signs episode with Sag moons, and I used the word hopelessness, but you didn't use that word. But this kind of feeling like, oh, everything is this is all we have or whatever. And so I this is not something I necessarily do to ground, but I do think it could be helpful to you is like sauna or steam room type, like, because Sag is just like so fire and so whatever. And I do think it's like, I used to like sit in my gym sauna, which is disgusting, and just tweet on my phone a lot. But because I don't necessarily love the heat, I would be on my phone to try to not feel it, if that makes sense. And I think if we're working on grounding, it's being in there and really like, oh, a sweat bead is forming at my forehead. Oh, now I'm starting to get covered in it. Oh, I feel like I need to stretch a little bit. Those kind of grounding things. Also, I mean, I kind of teased it at the beginning of the episode, but reading, I feel like, is such a good healing, and it is especially for me when I'm outside of my emotions, when I feel overwhelmed. I sit down with the book and I have to read the page over and over and over, because I cannot focus on the book because I'm still thinking about the problem or the thing or whatever is upsetting me. But once I am able to get past and get into it, it feels so much better than having sat and been on TikTok or thought about that person I'm mad at for a half hour or complained about it to my husband or whatever the thing that I use to self-soothe. Getting outside of it a little bit really helps me. So, and that I think is another like Sag thing, like meditation, reading, etc.
There's such a 2-page chapter about this in Rick Rubin's book about rereading like a page over and over. Anywho, just synastries at work. Also, I have to point out this synastry because now this is driving me like bonkers. But there's also this square to this T square to Jupiter from the nodes for this chart as well. So it feels like I feel like nodes are putting pressure on a planet. There's something to notice there. And you mentioned it of Jupiter Aries in the 9th. It's like just like there's so much power in sharing your ideas and being future minded. It's like, are you waiting for someone to lead that future for you? Because it very well might be you, especially you're solar ruled Leo rising with this Aquarius sun. I mean, this cluster with Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, and the South Node just feels like I want to know what you have to share and where you do see the future going. And then this is my last aside to just back to the 4th house, because I feel like it's come up for a lot of people in my life lately is, they'll read like, oh, I'm going to move because I'm having this 4th house transit. And it's like, well, maybe, but also where are you? Like, this is about like you at home, no matter what the home is. It's about peace. It's about sanctuary. It's about roots. It's about family. It's about those things that are behind closed doors, where the 10th house is very seen, whether we like it or not. And the 4th house is where you have to invite people in. So like, what is supporting your foundation right now? And does that need to change? And sometimes that is moving. Sometimes that is responsibilities, duties, closing up wounds, chapters, whatever it might be. So I think it's just like, what can support you to even do the things you want to do is like, I think that's a big 4th house theme that sometimes can entail moving as well.
Yeah, that was one of my Sag moon grounding things that I think supports your 4th house info is this is not so much a like literal grounding, even though I think that those are also great. I also wrote down like shaking, like getting active. I like the sauna too. I think that that's a really good, like applying some heat, but also just like, I don't know, shaking out your body, dancing, doing something where you're back and moving and kind of feeling that energy. Cause I think it is that like overwhelm of energy as opposed to that thing that, again, that feels like heavy and kind of hopeless. But I think also breaking down something that you need to do into like what needs to get done today and checking that off, sort of thing, because I think that we can get so caught up in the big picture, in the future, and that is like 50 steps away, and that feels really insurmountable. But if I go like, okay, what literally needs to get done in front of my face right now, and then I think that sometimes opens us back up to be imaginative and hopeful and excited about the future, as opposed to feel like we're stuck and we don't have any like, anywhere to move. Again, Sagittarius energy wants that like clear target. And I think going like, what's in the way of your target right now, literally in front of you. Do you have a clear path where you could like make a move? Yeah. I also think, not in a way that you get stuck at, but I think let yourself, like I wrote down, let yourself be dramatic. I think sometimes with that Sag energy, it wants to go as big as possible. And sometimes truly going like, I'm never going to figure out anything. I'm stuck here forever or whatever. Letting yourself do that often, at least in my experience, kind of makes yourself laugh. And then you go, well, that's not true. Okay, I could do this thing. But I think like letting yourself really revel in that kind of over the top exuberance of the doom is also very Sagittarian to me. And so I think also like, don't rob yourself of that. Let yourself, again, don't get stuck there. Don't let it be that, but like go have a good
like
time
the
with
most
it.
I have no fire or Sag in my chart, and I'm like, I would never do that. I would literally, Cancer moon, I would literally be like, I am doomed. I am like, I've never even thought of that. That's so fun.
The drama queen of it or whatever has like a performance.
Yeah. What is the worst case scenario? Are you like, there right now?
Yeah. Write it down.
I don't
or
think you
scream
are.
it or sing it or whatever it is. But sometimes I will do that and I'll be like, I'm the worst person that's ever lived and I'll never do anything right again or something. And then you say it out loud and you're like, okay, that's a bit much. This is a little on the nose. If we saw this on TV, we'd be like, that's bad writing.
I mean, also, it's going to be the talk of the town soon. You're going to have that Leo Venus retrograde all up on your
time, like 130 days almost or something, right?
So that might be
Leo.
Might be some just a heads up, like that's coming. And no, I love all this. Also, just a Sag moon thing. I know so many Sag moons that are really good in terms of grounding technique too, like really good with like herbalisms. I feel like they all make their own perfumes and like sauces for the kitchen for the week. So maybe doing something that is, especially because you have all this Aquarian, something that's a little chemistry-esque of like, if I take this and this, I can, maybe this is the future. It's like this, I make my own shampoo and this will last me for the month, or I don't know, maybe if there is some things of like control and where to like channel that. I don't know. That could be, I've just seen that work for some Sag moon. So that might be.
And if you figure out teach me how to teach my husband that. He can make shampoo and herb oils for me.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I think that Leo Venus, that's definitely, I think the same kind of drama of the Sag moon fear is also like maybe coming like where are these, what's the fear of being the same, of not moving forward, of this being reality kind of thing. Because I think also when we're very future oriented, it is still the same kind of idea of someone who is also past oriented or something too. It is about being anywhere but right now in the present moment. And I think it is like I think that Venus retrograde is a little bit of a slowdown and a like, nope, we're here right now. So like, how do we make the right now moment also someplace that we'd like to be? And what's keeping us from feeling like the right now moment is just as good as where it's going to be in the future? Because I think that sometimes we want that like improvement, but also that means that we still have to like, we don't get to that big thing without living through the days that lead up to that, big event or whatever.
And just Back to the Future. The 11th house, which we think of as the future house, if you will, back to your Mercury in Aquarius, conjunct Uranus, sextiling that moon, back to the moon. They like each other, you know, like they're spot on. When I see like it in the 7th house and the 5th house, which is so creative and with others, maybe it is, I don't know, like, do you have other people? Are there people doing things you want to do? Do you need to ask them about how they're doing it? Do you want to like make vision boards with your friends? Like, I think when I hear like preoccupied with the future, I'm like, so you're not doing anything about it? Like, or so you're not like preoccupied feels like distraction, where I think thinking about the future, but like integrating it in like magic or like the things that you're interested in. Like I'm 11th house person. I love thinking. I love the future. I love a plan on the books. Like, and maybe that's something you need too, to feel like motivation is like, oh, cool, I have a weekend trip in September and it's all about getting to that week. Like I have to trick my brain like that or I get sad. So dealer's choice. It's different for everybody, but it's like not everyone thinks of the future at all.
Yeah.
Some people live in the damn past.
Again, that's, I think, another thing, the same with our first question too, is that it's like, that's a feature of your chart, not something to be like, you have to.
Are we the toxic friends where we're
of.
like, y'all are fine? What's wrong?
No, I think it's that north south. I think it's that T square, the Jupiter's node T square, where also, it is like, yeah,
everyone is fine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And yeah, that too.
Writing to us that, like, you know, I started COVID. Like, no, like,
well, astrology people are all like the best, mindful, kind people who are like, look at everyone trying to better themselves. It's why it's like, it's wild. That's why when people shit on astrology, it's like, oh, okay, you're telling me all I need to know and beyond just like that you believe in it or not. It's like the consciousness of being a human in the world.
And trying to live up to your highest potential and you know, be a force for good in the world, and all of that is all admirable and a good undertaking. But yeah, I mean, no one needs to change. We're all okay. But
and these are strengths. Like I think that's the same for both questions. Is like I hear strengths of, you know, being around people and caring about like your effect in the world, and then also seeing the future and wanting to have these changes. So I hope
we want people
powers for good.
We want people who are thinking about the future and imagining things that don't exist yet, and wanting to build things that are better and that can improve our lives and all of those things. But I think that's a different thing than I feel overwhelmed at the prospect of of what am I gonna, where am I going? How do I have kind of guarantees about what I'm doing? And that unfortunately is not something that's there. But again, I think keep thinking about the future, but also just make sure it's not as a way to gloss over anything that you can be fixing in the present, or that you can be present for yourself with. We're not like running away from our present self because sorry, babe, that that person comes with you at all points. They're in the future too. So
so be nice to them.
Yep.
Cool. Well, great. I mean,
thank you. Yeah.
Awesome questions. I'm thinking a lot about lots of stuff just from these questions in my own. I mean, it's a treat to answer them for y'all, but also like I got so much out of these 2 questions today. I think they're very lovely.
Yes, absolutely.
So
thank you so much again.
Submit a good ass question, and it better be good. Join our Patreon. You'll get access to our Discord, the ability to submit questions to be answered on the episode. Also, shout out to the first question you mentioned, reviews, where they said nice things about us. Please write us a nice 5-star review. It helps people find us. And
also, if you really want to get your question answered, the questions carry over each time. So it is a greater chance that there's going to be more questions to pick from the longer you wait. Not to pressure you, but I am pressuring you. I'm a marketing person.
Get them in, baby. And it's been great to look at your charts. So thanks for joining us, Ramana.
Thank you so much to our questioners, to our listeners. Thank you all. We love you all, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.